Hello, hello, and welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom 100 Years Later project, where we are trying to hypothesize a Zelda game that takes place 100 years after the end of Tears of the Kingdom. I am very open to ideas from other people, so if you're on the Twitch chat or in the YouTube comments, give me your thoughts on everything I've discussed so far, and things you would change, and things you would add, and what you would want to see. So far in the streams, we have hypothesized how Hyrule might rebuild and expand. We've looked at what the map around might look at using people no-clipping beyond bounds. I did that off recording, though. And, we have placed a couple of dungeon positions based off of Zelda 1. So we got a couple little dungeons scattered around. That's what these little black markers are. The rough idea of what I'm imagining for the scenario of this hypothetical game, which more and more I'm thinking of treating like I wanted to run a D&D campaign based in this world eventually. And if people are interested in that, I'd love to hear feedback. Maybe as this series goes on, we can move on from mapping and story hypothesis to working on the mechanical groundwork. But, it's been 100 years, so we're sort of dealing, for the most part, with either the children or the grandchildren of the sages of Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to be very liberal with Tears of the Kingdom spoilers, by the way. So, you know, we're dealing with, like, Sidon's son, or Sidon's child, non-gender specific. The grandchild of the Ruto sage, the grandchild of the Goron and Gerudo sages, the grandchild of Link and Zelda, which, here's a weird fun thing to contest. Does Link end up with Zelda? Because that's always a very fervent point of debate in the Zelda series, is who are Link's romantic interests. You know, like, I'm on the boat that Ocarina of Time Link ended up with Romani, which is why his descendant is a rancher. I think Wind Waker Link 100% starts dating Tetra. No doubt in my brain. But, like, you gotta question, you know, who's related to who, and who actually has kids together, and with this case, are we supposed to read Zelda and Link's relationship as romantic or professional? And that is a very interesting topic to question, because in this setting, that would be very important, because with 100 years having passed, I'm going to say by this point, both Link and Zelda have passed on. And Zelda's son is the current king of Hyrule in this setting, and he has a daughter named Zelda. So we have a king and a new princess up on the rise to eventually rule. That's sort of where my thought is of the political situation. And also we have to ask, where the fuck does Link live? Because we have two homes for Link. The one in Hiteno, and the one up in Akala. Now, I personally think Link would long-term move to the Akala house. It's a home he built for himself, custom designed, and I feel like Link post Tears of the Kingdom would gain a close connection to Tarrytown, considering he helped it be founded. So I think long-term, Link moves there, has, like, a home, assuming he doesn't live with Zelda. And so we're going to do a lot of discussing here before I start actually touching the map, because a lot of this series is about hypothesizing the lore and figuring out where things go. And we got to think about how the rebuild effort even goes, right? And so, oh yeah, I meant to have a big build-up reveal to this, but yeah, we now have, why is my underworld map not showing? I now have on here, what is wrong with my, hang on, why is my underworld map not there? What? I think I fucked something up. I meant to have an underworld map, but it's just not appearing. Shit. I'd prepped it in advance and now there's just nothing. Well, shit, I was hoping to work a little bit on the underworld today. Hang on a second. What the fuck went wrong? Give me a second. Well, now I gotta go fish up the image I used, which, by the way, I'm using very low-resolution maps right now. I would like to not be using low-resolution maps. The stream might stutter a little because I'm opening my browser up. Ooh, fun. It immediately crashed as soon as I opened it. Oh, nope, there it's back. Yeah, I would love to be using higher quality maps, but it's really hard to find high quality maps of the Tears of the Kingdom world. So if you can get that, if you can help me with that, I would very much appreciate it. You know, join my Discord, throw it at me, like a link to where I can find high quality images. Here we go. So let's get this one. Alright, I'm closing my web browser now. Hopefully things aren't lagging too bad. Opening my web browser always freaks OBS out. What the fuck? What is... Ah! The image had full transparency turned up for some reason. Well, that explains that. There we go. I think when I meant to turn, because when I was scaling it correctly, I had it at 50% transparency. I think when instead of turning it all the way back up, I turned it all the way off. But yeah, now I have a very, very shitty map of the underground. Like, this is worse than my overworld map I have. I want better quality images, but like I said, they're very hard to find. But yeah, we'll touch on that later. Right now, like I said, the question is, you know, how we talked a little bit about how Hyrule might rebuild, you know, where we'll leave the bigger layer and the world layer on. And yeah. So like, one, I theorize that over the 100 years, this rock wall that barely holds back the water would likely wear down enough to flood this whole canyon. And that's what's going on here. This is the world edits layer, where I imagine things that would have changed in the world. You know? And so I feel like this whole canyon is flooded by this point, just because it never made sense to me the way that canyon was. And so, you know, 0 years, this is just me mapping where civilization exists at the time of Tears of the Kingdom's end. You know, people live at these green spots. I'm purposely not counting the stables because there's a heavy implication of the stables being nomadic and purposefully moving to wherever civilization isn't. So they're not worth tracking in my mind. And then I assumed after 10 years after Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda's first priority would be helping to ensure the safe connection of the regions and trying to rebuild Central Hyrule up. That's something I've thought about that I have got to try and look for. I want a map of all of the Bolson construction palettes, because I feel like that can give me a very good insight. Actually, hang on, I'm gonna go and search on my other computer that real fast. Is that a map somebody else has made? Not Bolson, Hudson, my bad. Bolson was the group from the first game. Yeah, I don't think there's actually a map of... Ooh, hang on. No, that's the sign. Yeah. The issue is Hudson's sign location jumble is the search. As far as I'm aware, nobody's made a map of that. Maybe that's something I would have to research myself, which would be a fun process, but I would love to work out where all of the Hudson construction... excuse me. Hudson construction, palettes are located. Because I feel like that would help a lot with figuring out where Zelda would want things built. Like, for example, we know that there's one located right here, or I know that there's one. So I feel like that's Zelda trying to have a bridge built across the tar pit here. That's something I would definitely want to look into, but I think I'd want to wait until I have the higher quality map I want to find eventually. Again, if you have a link to a high quality map, that will help this project so fucking much, and I would appreciate it so much. High quality map, both surface and underground, both with no markers or labeling on them. I've yet to find a good one anywhere. But, so this is what I think would be established over the first 10 years. roadways being built to connect all of the settlements, and, you know, I'm realizing I think I forgot to connect to one of the towers here. Because there's a tower up here. Did I make that part of one of the later expansions? Shoot, I overlooked a tower. Huh. Hold on a second. Give me a moment. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Skyview Tower locations. Yeah, I think I missed adding a tower onto my map. Yep, there's one up in the Gerudo Highlands that they would realistically need a path to. Oh, I think it's because I treated that as part of the 100-year expansion, which, yeah, no. Let's... Realistically, I want this to be part of the 10-year expansion. So... Excuse me. What was shady green doing? I'm gonna try and not cough too much. My throat's been very dry lately. Let me get the color match. Oh, it's a pale blue. That's why I wasn't finding it right. Let's skip this song in the playlist. I'm just playing the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom OST. So yeah, 10 years in, Zelda's priority is to connect Hyrule, right? That's my thought process. And so we've addressed which roads would likely be the priority roads, and we also looked at everywhere there's a Skyview Tower and assumed they'd be building those areas up. I, of course, forgot that there's a Skyview Tower. Wait, not there. Where was it positioned? That there's a Skyview Tower up here that I would need to have them build a road to. So that was an oversight in the initial layout. And if they're going to connect here, I feel like that tower's position is almost a primer to plan an attack onto the Yiga. And what we would see over these the first action post Zelda taking over, I think, beyond some generic rebuild stuff, would be aiding the Gerudo in an assault on the Yiga clan. At which point more of a road would be built up all along here, in order to connect to the Skyview Tower they have up here. And this whole region would be claimed in the name of the Gerudo, with the Yiga being pushed back and down underground. There'd, of course, be that event, you know, connect all of the settlements and all of the Skyview Towers as much as possible. There's not a road connecting here because they're connected, or this road I don't think would be treated as high priority because there'd be more of a focus on boating to this place here. And this town would serve as the temporary capital of Hyrule. That, you know, words. While Zelda living there for a lot of time while whenever she's not up in Castletown, helping to rebuild that. And thinking about it, while trying to reclaim the elevated castle would be a priority, would it be done? I think it would be done within 10 years. Not fully reclaimed, but they would have people going up and into it. And that's a really weird thing to think about, is, you know, how are they actually legitimately connecting back to the castle? And I think, like, the way that that's going to be done is a lot of constructing of towers, initially temporary wooden ones, until they start to do stone towers instead. And so Hyrule becomes sort of Hyrule Tower, in a way. And so this is sort of the rough idea of what 10 years later looks like. 30 years later, as we near the... not quite... I mean, if Zelda's in her 20s at the time of Zelda, like, I'm assuming in Tears of the Kingdom, Link and Zelda are, like, somewhere in their 20s. 10 years later, we'll put them in their 30s. Oops. Hang on. And so... I'm trying to think. 30s... This will put them in their 50s. Let's treat this less as a 30-year later and more of a 50-year later. Because this would put it near the end of Zelda's reign. Right? And so near this end of Zelda's reign, and I may update this map a little bit more with that thought process going on. A big part of the priority is cultural growth at this point. Because Zelda's all about the lost history of Hyrule. And so we'd see, one, a massive focus on reclaiming the Great Plateau region. And anywhere where there's a sinkhole, Zonai research team would be swarming on for attention. There'd of course be an attempt at looking over here. Oh yeah, and I'm assuming that within the 10 years after Tears of the Kingdom, this bridge breaks, right? Like, that just makes sense to me. And actually, hang on. In that vein, 10 years later, what roads straight up disappear is a thing worth considering. I'm gonna remove that world section. Let's think of a little bit about this. What roads cease to exist? I think this road would cease to exist. And we've already seen just between Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, roads vanish. Because I think the bridge that goes over this canyon would go away. And because of that, this road would basically stop getting used entirely. I think that bridge still exists, though, just has an old dilapidated one for players who are exploring the region to find and interact with. And then this road would become more of the main focus. Of course, a road connecting up to the this place would be a big part of the focus of what they're doing. The road going into the Lost Woods would remain, because I think people go to the edge of the Lost Woods all the time. This road would fully go away. Of course, this statement is dependent on the fact that Death Mountain doesn't erupt again, which, like, God, that could happen anytime. Death Mountain, I think, is the most volatile and unpredictable region on this map. I think all of these roads would still exist, even if not heavily used. Same goes for all of the ones around here. And I think 10 years later, yeah, all of these roads all around still exist. So that's the 10-year section. And let's put those into another group, just called 10Y. And that's considered a subgroup, right? Where, yeah, when I collapse overworld, it goes with it. And now let's look at the 50-year map again. Look at so yeah, Zelda would focus a lot on the cultural growth of Hyrule. I feel like at this point, 10 years in, Castletown's only just starting to get reestablished, but at this point, like, Castletown is thoroughly built back up. And Zelda has full-on moved from Hateno to Hyrule Castletown. And there's the process of, at this point, like, the castle has been, because she's had, 50 years of reign. The castle's been cleaned up. There's a tower elevator going to the castle. All of that good stuff. And I do think, turning our attention to the underworld, which we'll do later, I think this has all flooded. Not through any real specific intent of flooding it, but it has flooded. I'm gonna sip my drink. Like, at some point during the building process, something breaks at the narrow border separating the moat, like, the moat from the underground, and that area just starts to flood out. And so the area where Ganon died becomes completely inaccessible. Or not even died where he was fought, because he died in the skies above Hyrule. And there's some more things I want to tweak about this version of the map. Because this is a Zelda who's had a full life, a full reign, and I think there's some other locations that she would have put priority to that I didn't consider last time. One of them being rebuilding this whole entire arena area. And I think we would see this all get wrapped into the rebuild and reclaim effort. Bada bing, bada boom. Of course, assume anything green underneath is still considered part of the reclaimed regions, In fact, I think what I want to do, give me a second, go back to the 10 years later, so year 0, grab everything that is similar, and copy them, new layer above, paste, but instead make it the correct shade of pale blue. Hang on. Excuse me. I'm gonna be coughing a lot. I've been taking these antibiotics and they are just fucking up my throat. Merge down. Whoops. Yeah, I think that's a smart thing for me to do. Alright, and now, once again, grab all of that. Go up one layer to the 50-year mark. There we go. Alright, let's get back to this now. See, I think this area would all get reclaimed, and I think Zelda would have also had enough time in this point to get all of this blanketed into the rebuild effort. Oops. Am I on the wrong layer? Why did that not? Oh, because I still have that unchecked. There we go. And this area would have also been reclaimed within the 50-year time. You know, this quarry was kicked back into full use to help with the rebuilding of Hyrule. I think she would have put a focus on, you know, previously I was like, oh, I don't think this area would be touched. But no, I think she would very much focus on, if, like, it's not going to be actually built up, but some love and attention is given up here to maintain this road and path because of its importance. And, you know, I mentioned that I don't think a lot of the stables would be... I think most of the stables would move around. I think this stable would actually stay, but leave the stable association and actually become like a little inn, specifically built for people planning to try and make a pilgrimage to the Lost Woods. And I think Zelda would have also put an effort into building up this area as an area of importance. What with the horse park there and everything, and the clear cultural significance this place held in her time. Sorry about the sniffles. So yeah, that's an area that would have been given some degree of attention. Similarly, I think... No, some of these degrees of attention are more than anything her just going, yeah, that place is going to be a park. Like this area and this area are just officially made national parks of Hyrule. You know? And anything that is, like, officially being acknowledged by Zelda, I'm putting into here. As part of, like, her regrowth focus that she's dedicated to. 50 years of reign. She could do a lot, but the bulk of the attention is on rebuilding Hyrule. But I do think, with rebuilding Hyrule, we would see more... I'm giving more credit to her than I did in the first run. A lot more of Hyrule Field would get reclaimed than I initially gave her credit for. She'd, of course, want to look at these flooded ruins with her, you know, penchant for looking at old ruins and such. And so we'd probably see all of this rebuilt, but not the full Hyrule Field reclaimed yet, because attention is in all sorts of other directions. Because you gotta keep in mind, during her 50-year reign, Zelda's focus is rebuilding Castletown, exploring ancient ruins, exploring the underground, because in my concept, Hyrule Field never, or the chasms never closed, even though the Sky Islands vanished. Helping with the war on the Yiga. Like, the war on the Yiga, I think, would probably take up the first, like, 20 years of her rule, as she's, like, having to draw all of her attention in on that. And, like, 50 years, I think, is around the... you know, she's 70 years old. Her son is starting to get maybe around 10 years old. The next king of Hyrule, you know, he's aging up a bit. Let's just blanket this lump a little bit more as, being even more enveloped. Actually, no, I don't think I will do that. This road would all get a lot more attention, and I think would happen. There would be this cultural divide happening in the Sheikah at this point of like, are they losing their grasp on who they were as people? Because they were the secret people of they were the secret village of Hyrule, but at this point, they are a center of attention and a part of the main trade routes running through Hyrule. And I think we would see the start of another Sheikah schism, where the group led by Paya would form like the Zonai research team and all of them and still be calling themselves Sheikah. But then there's a group calling themselves, you know, the true Sheikah, who still serve Zelda, but are specifically like, Zelda, you need your hidden assassins back. You need your secret people back. And we are going to be that for you. Let me sip my drink real fast. And they talk with her about forming a secret village in Hyrule. A new hidden region of the Sheikah, you know? Kind of like what we see in the secret village from Twilight Princess. Now, what I want to consider here... God, sorry, I'm so sniffly. I'm very under the weather. Where would the new Sheikah hidden village be? You know, because this one was placed deep in a mountain range that keeps it out of sight. I think the logical place for a new secret Sheikah village, I want to think about this for a moment. Over here, I think might be where it would go. At the edge, so, you know, once again, hidden in like a mountain range and all of that. But is that too far from everything? I mean, this one is pretty far off from a large... I mean, we got to think about this, actually. Not all of this is Hyrule Kingdom. Hang on, let me just, like... God, sorry, I keep coughing so much. I feel so bad about it. Like, let's actually talk about the borders of kingdoms here real fast. The Gerudo Kingdom, I think, would be all of this. You know, they'd keep the Gerudo Highlands as being considered theirs. And, like, I think the line exists right there. I think that is what we can count as Gerudo as the Gerudo lands. With them even going so far as to claim these islands and come at the point of our setting. Meanwhile, the Goron land is pretty straightforward. Goron land is Death Mountain. This is the Goron territory. Because these are still their own independent kingdoms with their own rulers and leadership. Yes, they swear fealty to Zelda in a sort of peace treaty, but they are their own independent people. Next, of course, is the Zora, which again, a very straightforward edge to their territory. But hang on. God. I'm not drawing this the way I want it. There we go. Let me turn off this layer and this layer to help me see a little better. And I think right here, where the first bridge appears, is where the edge of their territory officially begins in that regard. Of course, all of this is theirs. And, you know, there's the question of, is this river theirs? And that's a fun question to debate in our heads, actually. You know, how exactly how much of this is Zora. I do think the Zoras claim a little bit of a connection to the ocean. It would make sense, especially because they have visitors who come from overseas in the second game. I think they don't claim this river as theirs. I think that is officially still Hyrule land. And I think that is sort of what we look at when we look at the land that is officially belonging to the Zora Kingdom. Is, yeah, something like this. The Rito, that is a very fun debate, because on one end, you could say the Rito village is, like, basically that, more or less. But, you know, we know they definitely have all of this and all of this. I think post Tears of the Kingdom, if it wasn't already theirs, the entire mountain range here would be gifted to them by Zelda at the very least. And so, like, I think Rito Land would likely consist of, like, you know, they wouldn't extend past the canyon as their territory. Although Cass's home being down here does raise some questions about territorial region and claim. But, you know, Cass's home was built in a time of basically apocalyptic upheaval. I think, like, something like this. I think Hyrule would hang on to most of the Hebra region up there. The tundras of it. And all of this would be considered Rito Land. And I think even that, as far as that lake is considered theirs. Excuse me. I keep coughing. My throat's just, like, very dry from the cold I have. And, talking so much doesn't help with it. All my yapping. Of course, this is all considered part of the Great Forest of, the Great Deku Tree. I'd even... no, that forest isn't part of this. So I'm also going to throw out a fan theory I have. I think at one point in development, the Great Deku Tree and, words and Sheikah Village, Kokoriko Village, I should say, were swapped with each other, more or less. And, like, let me just quickly... Where is it? There we go. Like, let's just quickly, like... No, grab this. Excuse me. Like, I think that was located there. Right. And this was located up here. I have very little to back up this theory, aside from it just being a thing I feel like would make sense in, like, the layout of things, because, like, Kokoriko Village was always near Death Mountain in the series. And that would put the Great Deku Tree closer to the Faron region, and we could even then theoretically say at one point in development, all of this was considered Faron. You could even argue Hateno was sort of began life as an excuse me, an Auradon village equivalent, the Hylian village in the forest region, you know? Excuse me. God, I'm coughing so much, I'm so sorry. But, you know, that's a sign of sort of a silly little theory I have, and I feel like would make sense, but I just thought I'd throw that out there since we're talking about all of this shit, and it popped in my head. But yeah. Although I think in all official, like, when they're talking with other people, they say the forest is part of Hyrule. But, like, these are the you know, with this we've worked out what doesn't officially belong to Hyrule. Whether or not these guys are part of Hyrule can be debated, whether they're their own independent nation or Hyrule, but I think more or less they'd be viewed as part of Hyrule. And that puts Akala as a very strange exclave, although I do think at one point, like, sort of, Hyrule treated their border as sort of like that, kinda. Before they had, like, fully grasped what this region was like, or maybe, I don't know. Just thoughts. Where's those words? So, the reason I wanted to do that is to help us think a little bit more about where the secret Sheikah village would go. Oh, it's just normal yellow, right? No, it's not normal yellow, god damn it. Why'd I use all these weird colors? So, like, a secret Sheikah village. Zelda would want, it would be built somewhere relatively hard to find and out of the way, where it could serve a good purpose to the kingdom. Like, the old position really was, in the terms of Hyrule Kingdom, very centrally located, if we look at this. Not far from the castle, to the point where you could, like, see the castle from one of the ridges they had, which would probably make it good for them to communicate with spy masters via light signals of some kind. They have a good view over all of this. They, just by climbing up their mountains near them, they have a good view of pretty much all of Hyrule. Especially if we assume the Akala region wasn't viewed as an important area for Hyrule, and all of this was probably sort of considered like far lands. Central Hyrule was really all of this at the time. Like, that was Hyrule at its peak, was this ovular space here. And so, as we can see that in where a lot of the ruins are. So, where would the new hidden Sheikah village go? I want to say here wouldn't be well hidden enough. Here, anywhere up in Akala, I feel is too far out of the way. The jungle, I think, would be getting too much attention from Zonai research teams to be good. There are some beach overhangs, but I think a coastal village wouldn't make sense for the hidden Sheikah village. But you know what would be a perfect location for a secret Sheikah village? Is somewhere right around here, I think. It's sufficiently out of the way, but also close to central Hyrule, close to a culturally significant location as well. My alternative thought was somewhere down here, but that feels too far from all of Hyrule to put it way out here on this coast. But here feels, especially because it puts it right near where all of the Yiga War is going on. So I think a Sheikah village would be built here. So we got Kokoriko village and we got Sheikah village. And I think, yeah, that is... Oh, one more thing. The Gorons 100% would expand further out at this point, claiming Gut Check Rock and all of these areas, They would probably push to claim a little bit more Hot Spring, but more and more the Gorons would be trying to retreat underground rather than be existing on the surface, but there'd be, like, the predominant Goron population now lives in the mountains, with Goron village being more or less abandoned, but then taken up by humans living there. But you still get sprinklings of surface-dwelling Gorons at Gut Check Rock, and maybe a little bit at the Hot Springs. There'd probably still be a couple living in this village, but a majority of the Goron population at this point has moved under Death Mountain. Excuse me. And then we get to the 100 years later. So this is the next generation is ruling Hyrule. King Bosphorus has his daughter Zelda, and Hyrule is in a golden age of prosperity. And I'm gonna start this off by deleting everything I previously did. So I've had a lot of time because it's been like a month since we last worked on this, and I've been thinking a lot about how I'd want this to be. So, yeah. Oh, what the hell? Why did I not select with everything else? It's a different yellow, that's why. A subtly different yellow. There we go. Which I am realizing now. Hang on. With how I'm doing this now, I'm just gonna go ahead and use this shade of yellow for all the layers. Alright, and now... The 100 years later Hyrule map. Why did it still not get selected? What the fuck? Hang on, I'm so confused. Let's just... Alright. 10 years later map. Fill... Sorry, 0 years later map. Fill everything in with this nice yellow. 10 years later. Fill everything in with this nice yellow. "50 years later. Fill everything in with this nice yellow. And then select all. And go to 100 years later. There we go. So, we've now had an entire second king's rule. And I think by this point, we got... Oops. Boop, boop, boop. Boop. No, hang on. All of Central Hyrule is thoroughly claimed now. All the way up to here. And by thoroughly claimed, I mean, like, at this point, we got farm fields and ranches all scattered through Hyrule Field. It is a thoroughly established region. I think all of this can be called thoroughly claimed. God damn it. With, like, again, more farms and other things established in the region. Even a little bit up here. And I honestly, as far down as all of this, and with this mountain peak being swallowed up, I think by this point, a thorough expansion will have gone across here. And over Eventide Island being claimed. I think the jungle still hasn't been touched, because in real life, jungles are really fucking hard to settle. But that being said, there would I think at this point, we would actually have a couple of villages settled around this region where the horse goddess once existed. This is Auradon Village in this reality. Auradon Village gets established, and with it, Lake Hylia gets very thoroughly claimed. Bringing all of this into being part of Hyrule. The Gerudo... Hang on, so how much of this actually would have happened under Zelda's rule? After the Gerudo have pretty thoroughly stamped out the Yiga, I think there would be a big focus given to reclaiming more of their ancestral lands. So, the Gerudo would actually put a lot of focus in on getting all of this good. Hang on, I gotta look at a map of the Gerudo region on my phone to remind myself of where there's ruins. Tears of the Kingdom interactive map, Zelda Dungeon. Also, another good reason to support Zelda Dungeon is they have their own wiki, and if you can ever avoid using the .wiki site, do. Fuck .wiki. Yeah, so the North Gerudo region, by the end of Zelda's reign, I think would be very thoroughly reclaimed. And we would basically see... No, not necessarily people thoroughly living in these areas, because it's hard to establish, but a lot of, especially with the Zonai and the military groups working at it, a lot of attention going into trying to make these areas somewhat more livable. In fact, I think the northern Gerudo ruins would actually be starting to get established and lived in. I don't think the Great Cliffs would be touched. Honestly, I think these are the only expansions that would happen within Zelda's lifetime. But then move forward 100 years, and we would see a little bit of love being given to the this area, the Arbiter's Grounds, I think it is. Oh wait, I see what I did wrong. Hang on. What the fuck? Anytime I make a change to the map, I gotta make sure that I reflect it going all the way up. Is that Arbiter's Grounds? What is that area called again? It's the Eastern Barrens, but there's clearly important ruins buried under it. Excuse me. Where was the Arbiter's Grounds? Oh, wait, it was just next to the temple. If there's more ruins I'm forgetting, I apologize. Oh, there's the West Gerudo ruins located. Yeah, and so I do think, like, at this point, the Gerudo are trying really hard to reconnect with their lost heritage. And we're seeing things like this. But also with all of this, we see this. Shoot, hang on. Oh, and I'm gonna change this to be 100 years in the map. You know, that's around the time when it's finally worn down enough over the course of the 100 years. Let's make these a group together. I'm actually gonna call it 100G, has 100 group, and this is the 10G, the 10 group. There we go, that's the bigger. Let's move the bigger layer down to here. There we go. That way we can paint on top of it. I think the Gerudo will have made a effort to connect to the ocean. And we will actually see, one, a little bit ocean town here. But much more interestingly, lots of speckled Gerudo coastal villages. And I think a big part of the plot of this Zelda 100 years later is Gerudo pirates right out of fucking Majora's Mask. As we have, like, Gerudo settlements all over here. And these are, like, used as trade out. And, like, the ones out here are hugely culturally different from the Gerudo out here. I'm thinking something similar to, like, Skyrim's Redguard culture going on across the whole region. And these guys are only connected via boat and a fishing village that exists, or not a fishing village, but a trade village over here. And I think that's like a big part of this Hyrule. And of course, by this point, the Gerudo quarries will have kicked back into full gear even more than they had in the last game, or in the last time jump. So we'd see these areas claimed. And then you'd also have the nice icy Gerudo village up here. The Gerudo would become hugely culturally diverse in this 100-year time period, with there being, coastal pirate Gerudo and mountaintop living in an icy village Gerudo, and a lot of them would probably be like, why do we live here? This is terrible. The Gerudo would see, like, huge cultural boon. Meanwhile, the Gorons almost experience this cultural regression as they connect with their heritage in a way that sinks them deep underground. And, the Gorons almost begin to disconnect from Hyrule by this point, becoming very seclusionary. But the Gerudo, while they are connected to their own culture, they also burst culturally to the point where, like, There's civil war-like tension within the Gerudo region, as different Gerudos fight each other, or not fight each other, but debate with each other, you know, as we almost have this split rulership, where there's the actual leader of the Gerudo in Gerudo Village, but, like, out in the coast region, you have these, like, trade barons who are serving as sort of, like, pseudo-leaders. And another part of this, I actually think, there would be an attempt going on. Hang on. I don't think it would actually be made yet. I think the Gerudo are up here trying to dig a canal to give them good trade all the way up here, with their thought being, oh, we will connect ourselves to the Rito. And in that same vein, the Rito, oh shit, look at that. We got coastal stuff now. And so they expand to the very edge of their territory. But, in general, there's not a lot of... I do think the Grito would experience a major cultural growth in general. Getting more mountain villages. Because they have these mountain paths that we see in the game. As they slowly eke out. And, like, they're, you know... There'd be some significant regions up here at the top of the mountain, some, like, culturally significant locations. And I think we might even see a new road forming to connect down to here. To make a full loop path there. Yeah. I think... And I think similarly, over the 100 years, the Zoras will have purposely pushed out to here a little bit more heavily. In order, especially to connect themselves more heavily with their brethren over the sea. And there would definitely be, like, relatives of Sidon on his wife's side coming and being like, we need to establish greater independence from Hyrule. You cannot live under their thumb. But Sidon is like, no, I love the Hylians. What are you talking about? They're amazing. I fucked Link so much. You know, he would, like... And that would be a cultural tension going on here at the time when the campaign takes place. And so, like, we would see this Hyrule that has grown massively. How long have we been going? Oh my goodness, we've been going for an hour. I had really intended to delve into the underground this episode, but I think we're gonna save that for the next one. So, if you find this at all interesting and you're enjoying, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this hypothetical, like, Zelda story continuation, Tears of the Kingdom continuation, Tears of the Kingdom 100 years later. You know, give me your comments down below, message me on the Discord. If you can find a high-resolution map, please throw it at me. The better resolution a map I have, the more... Right now I'm operating on a very blobby format, but I would love to actually be painting in specific buildings and structures. But on this map, that's just not worth it. But if I can get a proper, high-quality, large map of Hyrule, I would 100% love to. And realistically, if I do that, I'd probably dial back my expansion that I've done here and make the map something more like this. Hang on. My thing doesn't like when I select a large amount of stuff. Like, this would probably be the outer bounds of the map that I utilize. Just expanding a little bit west and a little bit south, you know? I think that's more or less how I would handle this. You know, maybe anything up here would be if I did run this as a tabletop campaign, I might build a whole new like, maybe this is Librenia, you know? Or maybe it's one of the neighboring regions that existed in other Zelda games. Maybe it's Termina. But yeah. I think I'm very happy with a lot of what we've done here. I'm debating if I should try and build back up into... If they would have built up into this old lighthouse or not. There's a lot to think about, and, you know, we didn't even touch the Yiga claims that I was playing with. Oh, I forgot one thing I wanted to have addressed in the 100 years later. 100 years in, the king would 100% have pushed for an expansion of Hyrule's breadbasket into this area up here. So all of this would be populated thoroughly with farms and ranches and, like, sheep farmers and the like. And I think we would even see probably a new road get built here. You know, skipping across that island. And yeah, I think that's the growth we would see happen over 100 years. And I do like how I've set this up now with it all being yellow. The darker the yellow, the longer this expansion region has been established. You know what I mean? Oh, man. But yeah, I'd love to hear all of your suggestions on things. This is a once-a-month series, so in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how you count it. You know, there's going to be 2 weeks of not this, and then the third week will be more of this. So in 3 weeks, we'll see more of this series. If you like talking about Zelda, check out my other Zelda mapping project, where I'm recreating Zelda 2 in the art style of Zelda 1. You know, both these Zelda projects I'm doing, I do want to quickly do credit where credit's due. I meant to do it at the start, but I forgot to. A big part of my inspiration for doing this comes from the Zelda Unflooded project. I hugely recommend you check that out. That dude's remodeling what Wind Waker looked like below the sea. Way cooler than the shit I'm doing. But I'm doing, you know, I'm not a 3D modeler. I'm a shitty pixel artist. So I'm using what I can do. And I'm also like a game master who does D&D and stuff. So I'm looking at this project, I'm looking at the lens of D&D. The other Zelda project, I'm looking at through the lens of it's a pixel art project. But yeah, like, I would love to hear all of your input. You know, my plan is that next week's video will start to tackle the underground and the territory of the Yiga. So, you know, give me your thoughts on that. Give me your thoughts on everything going on here. If you think that my expansion of Hyrule makes sense. I barely touched on what the plot of this game would be, but my thought is, because I'm treating this more as a D&D campaign than a video game. But as a D&D campaign, the idea is that the players would take on the roles of the apprentices of the sages, and would be learning how to use their sagely ability while the Yiga War is still going on, even 100 years later. Like, the peak of the Yiga War was way back when Zelda was in rule, and there was a big push to force the Yiga underground, and the Yiga have been in hiding for the last 100 years, and Hyrule's been trying to explore the underground and poke their nose in it, but every time they do, the Yiga just force them out with guerrilla warfare, so we barely understand the underground. But for the Yiga, the underground is their realm. It is their vastly ruled kingdom that they have control over. And that has led to them establishing themselves more and more. And now, all of these years later, I'm honestly debating having the start of this campaign be Zelda's funeral. You know, like, Zelda has lived for 120 years. The great sage of time, the ruler of Hyrule has finally passed. And that emboldens the Yiga to actually push through and begin their attack again. And so the heroes have to go, the sages have to go and awaken their sagely ability so that they can partake in the war with the Yiga. And the real goal of the Yiga is they want to revive the demon lord Ganon. And part of how they're doing that is they're going around Hyrule and finding, you know, when Dragon Ganon died, his scales, claw shards, and horn shards scattered across Hyrule. And the Yiga are trying to get those, I think, is a part of this, in order to literally rebuild their master. And I've got a lot of ideas of where the narrative could go, and like I said, when this project is done, I 100% want to try and reach out to some of my friends and run a tabletop campaign in this setting, which, if you like tabletop, check out my Shadow Space series or my Hero Infinite series. Those are 2 tabletop campaigns I'm running on the channel. I'm really enjoying doing more of these art project things. You know, they're spaced out a little bit more because these things take time. I want to get back into my game development series I was doing, and that may come soon. What soon is relative. It can come sooner if I get my donations on Ko-fi. You know, that's really what helps this channel exist, and right now, this is a hobby more than anything. And I'd love to do more content for all of you, but I can't do that so long as it's a hobby. But if I can get to the point where I make a living on this, expect this series to pick up in frequency, expect other series to pick up in frequency. Like, I want to do things more often, I just need to find the time. But yeah, anyway. Hope you've all enjoyed this episode of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom 100 years later. And cards should be appearing any second now if they're not already here. Click one of them to continue watching. Love all you very, very much, and ta-ta for now. And your feedback is not only welcome, but requested. Bye.